Ooh, hello, everyone. 3D Ben is early. Me too, buddy. Me too. It's good to see you, though. Glad you're here. Hello, Devil. Hello, Ziggy-Zon. Samara. Mayur Baj. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I think I mispronounced your name last time as well, Mayur. Apologies. Hello, Lily. Good to see you. And Beauty, of course. Beauty's hi got auto-translated to this again. I have no idea. It seems like the auto-translation is just like targeting you specifically, Beauty. I don't know what's happening. Oh no, it's also targeting Vibhu, who's coming in and saying hi Tim, and it translates it to hi team. Okay, thanks. YouTube, if you don't want people to call me by my name, then please just say so. You know, come on. Ridiculous. I had a quick look if I could disable it, but I can't really find it. So hey, we'll deal with it. Let's switch it on up, shall we? It's good to see you all. There to say no problem. Hello, Rustam. I just had a look at your post, dude. It's looking really good. I like it. I like the breakdown of the little artists that you've done. Really well presented. I like it. So well done, man. Even though the artist itself didn't really, it was successful, but it didn't land you a job, or you couldn't accept the job, which sucks. But hey, you didn't make it though, so that is good. That's already a good sign. You've already done way more than me. I've never passed any of my artists that I've ever done, so I don't know what that says, but hey. Maybe I suck, you know? Maybe I suck at art. Who knows? Anyway, I hope everyone is having a good week. Yes, Lily is saying exactly what I've been working on. Art Blast. So tomorrow we are doing an Art Blast for all of our team challenges. I'm doing a bunch of prep. I spent yesterday preparing ArtStation, so all the posts are ready to go up. I just need to basically post them whenever it's time. And now I'm setting up a bunch of social media stuff as well, which I need to continue tonight because tomorrow I'll be having dinner with my parents, so we will have to manage somehow, you know. Devil is saying, I watched the results from the environment competition and gotta say everything is insanely impressive. Are these competitions from your Discord server for members? Yep, they are. We host them twice a year. The next one is coming in October, because we are still ramping down. As I just mentioned, we are having an Art Blast tomorrow, so that's where we basically try to get as much exposure that we can, so that people hopefully get seen by the industry, and that we can give them a little bit more exposure. And it's a win-win for us, of course, because it helps us to get more exposure to people that want to take their art to the next level. That's what we're here for. But yeah, it's all people from our community. Well, technically not true. There's also people from outside the community that join to partake, and then once they've done a challenge, they leave again. So we have a couple of those people as well, which is all fine. But yeah. How do you judge if an artwork is portfolio worthy or not? So that's a good question. Let's dive into that in just a second. Vibo is saying, last I remember you were making a village scene. Did you finish it? Nope. No, I'm just way too busy. So currently my time is divided between technically not full-time job. I work on a contract from Monday to Thursday. And the rest of the time I spend on Beyond Extend. So I don't really have time to do anything else, because especially we just had a team challenge. That was a lot of work. Now we are going into continuing the production of our courses, plus we're still continuing all the rest of the stuff that we do as well. Right? So there's a bunch of stuff happening. I'm doing a website redesign to prepare us for the future. So this is going to be, I don't know, version like 3 or 4 of the website, I think. And every time we did it, it should take us to like the next level, you know? So I'm really excited to show you what's been going on, how we're going to be presenting things. But it's basically in preparation to streamline all the stuff we're doing and also prepare us for the academy stuff. It sounds amazing. Definitely would want to join in the future. I want to get more experience since I'm a total beginner. Yeah. Especially these team challenges, they are not aimed at full beginners. So yeah, that's something that we will be more clear about in the future. But when these team challenges happen, what we do is I do portfolio reviews while myself and Sunny, we look at the portfolios together, and then we see who can join the challenge, right? So yeah, we do a lot of prep for it. We've had like an amazing team of mentors this time around as well, and an awesome jury too. But yeah, they're not meant for complete beginners. It's just not a thing because the timeline is so strict. It's only 5 weeks from literally nothing to a full environment. If you then have to do a bunch of learning, you know, like we accept that people are going to learn new skills and that there's going to be people with more experience that are going to be teaching other people, which is a part of it, right? That is what we want to. But it's not meant to be like a complete beginner experience. Devil is saying, I remember that Abigail said that you can take a screenshot of the ArtStation page and edit your render of your work into one of the thumbnails and see if it matches or not. Well, yeah, but that's a thing, right? If you compare it to like the front page of ArtStation, right? So we're diving into the question that Anurad asked, is basically how to judge if an artwork is portfolio worthy or not. The way that you mentioned, Devil, could be a good way. The issue with that is that if you are a beginner, you are not going to have anything on your portfolio for the next couple of years. Because if you just go to the front page of ArtStation, those artworks are from people that have been professionals for like a decent amount of time already. And if that is going to be your benchmark, then it's not going to be a realistic benchmark to set for yourself as a junior, right? So I would use the same sort of methodology, but then try to be more specific with the people that you target, right? So try to find like juniors that literally just got in the industry and try to see what they did on their portfolio and see what they did well. And then see how you can build a portfolio around that. However, in the beginning, the stuff that you're going to put on your portfolio, like whenever you finish something, just put it on your portfolio and it's going to suck. That's fine. We have to crawl before we can walk, before we can run, right? So that's like a normal part of the progression. That's why the most common pieces of advice that you're going to hear from a lot of people is delete old work, right? Like remove it from your portfolio or like hide it in this case. That is because you are learning so much while you're going on your artistic journey that there are going to be things that are just like old and you don't want to have that on your portfolio, right? So yeah, here's the thing, like that's really what it comes down to, right? Like in the beginning, you yourself are just going to put everything on your ArtStation, right? And you're going to build up the habit of finishing projects, publishing it, finishing projects, publishing it, finishing projects, publishing it. And while you are building that muscle, your skills are going to get better and better and better. Now, by the time that you're used to publishing it and you're working on your portfolio and you're publishing again, you've already built up that muscle. And now you can just focus on making your work better, right? Because yeah, I don't think there is any. What I'm saying is you shouldn't wait to publish anything on your portfolio. It is like a skill that you can already train yourself to get better at over time. And then over time, what you're also going to be doing is you're going to create or you're going to develop an artistic insight of what is actually needed for your portfolio. But that only happens if you're actively thinking about how to develop it. Been learning Unreal Engine lately, the most basic stuff. PGG, roads and plants, lighting, using Gaia. That's not basic. That's like pretty advanced already. But Lumen is so frustrated and I got an issue with it. Yeah, I'm not a lighting artist and I don't use Lumen on a professional level. So I'm not going to help you with specific questions. Or I'm not going to be able to help you with like a lot of specific Unreal Engine stuff. Unfortunately. But yeah, Lumen, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like with any developer tool, you're always going to complain about it. I can make that guarantee. No matter what program, no matter what software, no matter what engine you're working in, you're always going to complain about it. And there's always going to be a thing where like, oh, I wish I could have worked in this. And then you work with this and it's like, oh, it's actually not that great to work with because everything is constantly being developed as you're working on it, you know? Because even people that work in Unreal Engine and they work with like the latest updates and all that kind of stuff, they say that like, yeah, very unstable, like there's a lot of stuff that they want still. So it's, yeah, it's for everything. But yeah, good on you for learning stuff though. That's awesome. What is better, Gaussian splats or photo scanning? So I've only done photo scanning. I've not done Gaussian splats. I think Gaussian splats are interesting. However, they are fundamentally not how the games industry works, right? But I am curious to see how you can use Gaussian splatting as like a photo scanning technique, but I honestly don't know enough about the technique or like the workflow to use to even give like an opinion on that. I honestly have no clue because I've not done Gaussian splatting myself. A lot of the lights and indoor areas have weird flickering, and no matter what people recommend in Discord communities, nothing seems to solve it. And I set the scalability to cinematic. Yeah, it can be a lot of things. It can be a bunch of things. It can be specific settings in your lights. It can be light bleeding if your walls are not thick enough. It can be your scalability settings, like you just said. It can literally be like 1,000 things, right? Especially when it comes to that specific thing. Even if I have to go on text alone, even with that, there's so much guessing already. Hello, Mike. Good to see you. Good to see you. And hello, Marius. Good to see you too. And Notala, good to see you as well. But yeah, Vibu, thanks for asking the question about my village scene. Yeah, it's just not finished. I think the last thing that I was doing, I was using BCG and I was like doing some experimentation and like remaking the forest and all that kind of stuff. I was having a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I don't have enough time. Like what I would love to do, and this is sort of coming up next month because one of my contracts is gonna end, right? So there will be a time for me to like pivot a little bit, and I want to carve out some time to do my own art again. Because I do miss it. I do miss it. I love working with Unreal Engine myself. And I wanna get more in tune with the tunes, with the tools actually. But yeah. Who knows? So that's on the cards for the future. And I don't know, honestly, I genuinely don't know if I'm going to go back to the medieval village now or not. Or if I want to do something new and potentially try something different. I'm not sure. I am not sure. Because the thing is, like with the medieval environment, I kind of use it as a test bed for a lot of stuff, right? And I feel like I've run enough tests to realize that if I wanted to do it properly now, I would have to like redo a bunch of stuff, which I was doing, but it would just be so time intensive that it's, I don't know. Maybe it's time for something else, you know? But who knows? We'll see. Hello, Dale. It's time to go beyond your extend. Let's go, Lily. But yeah, what else is happening? Like I'm saying, like I'm just really spending all my time in currently doing the redesign of like the website, which is taking a lot of my time. I'm really excited about it though. It looks so good. It is just I need to fix like a bunch of scalability things, right? So that it works on like multiple platforms. But I'm really excited about it. Everything is gonna look way better because the team challenge page that we have now, it's decent, you know, but it could use like a little bit of sprucing up. It showcases everyone's work way better. Oh my god, I'm so excited for it. I'm hoping that what will be a deadline? I'm hoping that I could be done by the end of the week. That would be nice, and now we can switch up to something else. But there's still so much that needs to be done. I need to make, yeah, because I need to switch over to like the course, right? That's where I want my focus to be, and really start building out on that. Thoughts on the Forza Horizon leak? It really sucks. I honestly had no idea that one happened. As a contractor, I'm out of the loop with all that stuff, right? I think where did I see it? I can't remember where I saw it, but there was like a post on Reddit or something like that where they were talking about it. Oh no, like a YouTube comment somewhere. I don't know. I mean, it does really suck, you know? But yeah, I mean, it spoils a surprise and like a genuine anticipation, right? In this case, it's a little bit different because it was already announced and there was already like a lot of information out there, right? Like, sure, you can still play the game, but like these things on this scale, I think just unfortunately they're gonna happen, right? Like for example, when we were working on like Far Cry 6, it also leaked after a certain point because a very specific outlet in some specific country forgot to like click the wrong button, you know, and that's how it leaked. That's how like the cover art and all that kind of stuff leaked, you know? It is that stuff at this scale is just gonna happen, I think. Of course, if you're talking about like the entire game and all that stuff leaking, that's a bigger issue, right? It's not like some JPEG on like a marketing website somewhere. So yeah, it still really sucks. It kind of sucks for the developers, you know. I mean, a bunch of my friends still work on it, so it does really suck regardless. But yeah, it becomes really hard to see. There's so many moving pieces when making games at this scale that, oh my god, it's really hard to keep everything super tight. Which is also like a big surprise that sometimes you see games coming out of the blue and taking over the market. That is like a very rare scenario where literally everything just aligns, you know? Which is really cool. Tarpan is saying, join after a long time. I'm sorry I couldn't post my whip for review. I will do it next week. Yeah! Welcome back. Welcome back. Satyam is saying, after finishing a project and uploading it, I felt proud of it. After like a week, I started to see problems in my work and then feel my work is trash. That's normal. Your work is not trash. It's just in that week, your artistic eye has had some rest and has developed to see new things that you couldn't see the last week, which is part of normal artistic progression, you know? So don't feel like your work is trash. It is just literally part of progression. It's 100% normal. Because here's the thing, right? Like if, let's say the opposite happens, right? Like if you publish your work and let's say 2 years down the line, you don't recognize like what you can improve. That is even worse, right? Because now you haven't learned anything within those 2 years and you haven't tried to push like your own artistic eye, right? That is way worse than actually looking at your work and seeing the issues with it already. So actually the thing that you consider a negative might actually be a positive. But yeah, what we talking about? Yeah, the leaks. Yeah, it sucks. It does suck. So Tam is saying that I am in a dilemma because should I take it off my portfolio and make a new project for, let's say, a job or a YouTube video or Instagram? Don't focus on external motivation. That's what I would say. I think you're worrying too much about like your portfolio. I think you should be worrying more about like, what do I like to do and how can I get better at the things that I like to do? The rest of it doesn't really matter. Because, I mean, that's an easy thing to say, right? There's obviously considerations like real life coming in and having to put money on the table and all that kind of stuff, right? So there are some considerations there. But don't just do a project because it would be like a cool YouTube video. Don't do a project because it's going to get a lot of likes on Instagram. Don't do a project because you want to put it on your portfolio to get likes on ArtStation, right? All that stuff doesn't matter. What the focus should always be is, what do I want to do, right? So for me, that was like, I always want to build worlds. I don't care about props. I don't care about individual tiny things. I just want to build worlds, right? So that's where my pursuit has always been, right? And then obviously, like, I took some detours here and there, but that's what I wanted to do, right? So for me, in the beginning, that was concept art, and then I discovered 3D, and then I became an environment artist, blah, 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 blah. But it's like never, oh, I want to get exposure or views here or whatever, right? That should not be the main guiding line. Hello, Dreamers Monolith. Welcome, welcome. I'm struggling with indoor lighting. Everything looks kind of PSX style, unfortunately. Yeah, I would say best of luck with that, Devil. Best of luck with fixing the issues that you have. MH is saying, do you think that using AI in a workflow is a positive thing for an artist to do if he wants to get hired? When I say AI, I mean, for example, AI texture albedo extraction or using blueprint generated by AI. There's a wide chasm there, right? If you want to be a material artist and you're generating textures with AI, then you're not going to get a job. Or you're not going to get a job at the companies that you probably want to work for if you're talking about video games, right? The big issue is still ownership, right? So if, let's say, your work is all AI generated and then you do stuff like that, that is really difficult, right? It gets a little bit blurrier when you're talking about the specific things that you're saying, right? But I think most companies are just going to be like blanket slate, like, hey, no, we're not going to do that unless you do something like Ubisoft is doing where they have their own proprietary software and everything is trained internally, all that kind of stuff, right? Because that means that they own the IP right of it, right? There's something like that happening. But in general, I don't think... yeah, I don't think that like adding AI to your workflow for like artistic intent is a thing that you should be doing. Whenever you're doing something that is more code-based and you don't want to do code, you know, use AI. You know, it's really good at that too. So, well, really good. It's somewhat decent for the tools that we want to build as artists. You know, I'll say it like that. Because as soon as you want to do something more elaborate, it just... Don't get me wrong, I hate AI, but I do think it should be integrated into the workflow, but I haven't found a use yet. Well, yeah, let's flip that around, right? It should be integrated if it has found a use. But that's the issue, right? And it's not only because there's no use. I think you could see a use case, but then you run into a lot of secondary issues with just IP ownership and all that kind of stuff, especially if you want to work for like a big AAA company, right? That stuff just, yeah, it's not going to work. Because here's the thing, like in general, if a tool is ethical, it's easy to use, and it would make sense and it will speed up my workflow, I think a lot of people would actually say yes to that tool, right? There's just too many concerns with all the stuff we're talking about now. Just too many concerns. That's why even though, like, especially in games, like we're seeing a lot of hubbub that, like, oh my god, everyone's getting fired for like AI. That's not true. It's not AI. It's like overspending, overinvestment, and then the market drastically shrinking after COVID stopped, you know? Because here's the thing, Satyam, I think you're going into the right direction, right? Satyam is saying, I love creating worlds with using AI or megascans. There is a feeling that the world is not personal. It feels alienating. Building all environment props is a lot of time consuming. Yeah, so there is a balance there, right? So as an environment artist, if you want to build big worlds, it is going to be time consuming regardless, right? If you look at big AAA developers, that's why they have so many people working on it, right? Because the worlds just get bigger and bigger and bigger, which means they need more people to make the world, right? But the most important thing to me is that I started doing art because it was a creative expression. And for me, games is the most interesting art form of that creative expression because it allows people to walk in them, right? And just going through the paces and developing something yourself, that is where I get a lot of my fulfillment from. So if that gets replaced by something else, right? Even if it can do that, it is not going to be interesting to me because that is the thing that I like. So if, let's say, the whole industry changes and it's all going to be AI based, I'm just not going to do that, you know? Like, that's where I draw the line. And if people only want to type in prompts and then make games that way, let's say if it even happens, right? That just doesn't sound interesting to me at all. That's not why I got into art in the beginning. So yeah. Even when I say AI generated albedos, I still gotta they still get edited in software later by me. Well, yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like, it goes into gray zone territory like immediately, right? When it comes to that stuff, and then it's like, it's almost like you're saying YouTube has rules when it comes to copyright claims, right? Where the content is transformative, right? We haven't figured that part out yet. You know? Suri Gaming is saying, I'm a beginner when it comes to art and I struggle a lot with set dressing and asset placement and actual game programming. Any tips or recommended resources? I can't really point you to resources on like set dressing and asset placement, actually. There's probably going to be like a bunch of good YouTube tutorials on this. What I can say, the thing that I always say is clustering and working in triangles. So two different things. Clustering is where instead of like trying to scatter stuff out, you condense it into clusters because that makes it easier for us to read and it looks better visually, right? And what I then do is I put everything into like triangles. What that means is that I'll have like a big asset in the middle, and then it's surrounded by like smaller assets, and then it's like scattered pebbles around it, you know? And this can apply to rocks, this can apply to barrels, this can apply to cars, whatever you want. You always want to have like a gradient that goes from like big, medium, small, right? So big stuff surrounded by medium stuff, scattering by smaller stuff. Always. And when you're thinking about it from a high level, when it comes to set dressing and asset placement, think about who was in that position, you know? Who has been there? Who's walked through that environment? Who lives there? Like all those things where even if you're building something without a character, you should be able to feel the character in the environment, right? Let's see some more AI stuff. Comfy UI is open source, but it's also complicated and requires such high-end PCs to make some models work. Hey, thank you, Suri Gamer. No worries. Happy to help. Yeah, so Comfy UI needs high-end PCs to make models. I don't think the average artist would use it. Well, it depends, right? Like if you're working in like a professional setting, like let's even say you're a freelancer, right? Your PC is your lifeblood, right? So you're gonna have like a high-end PC if you're taking this stuff professional. If you are a professional in this industry, right? You need a beefy PC so you can run like all this kind of stuff too. But I have seen stuff from it, but I have not played around with it myself. Again, with all the stuff that I'm doing, I just have no real time/interest to even get into it. Not at this point. Because I can't really see what it would meaningfully replace for me at this point, you know? Because it just seems to want to desperately replace the stuff that I love to do. Which is, I'm not interested in that. Same with meta-humans. When indie games constantly rely on them without edits, they always end up looking like siblings. Yeah, I mean, that was like a huge issue, and still is to a certain degree, with asset flips, right? With just going to a marketplace and then just grabbing. This was especially apparent with like mobile games, right? Where people would just like grab an asset pack, make a game with it, and then do the same game. Then do the same thing with like the same game, just with different assets, right? Same thing could happen with like more complicated games as well, and that is gonna completely sour the market. Which is, by the way, what we're already seeing, right? Like all this like talk about like AI and all that kind of stuff. There's already like a big trend against it because people just don't care. That's not what they want. Like if you think about Skyrim, right? If you can interact with every character and every character has their own in-depth story and you can talk to them endlessly, that is not what makes a good game. Fundamentally, a game is something where you can go in and it has like a curated path for you to follow, and you can deviate occasionally and kind of explore like little side paths and all that kind of stuff. But the beauty about it is that there are occasional moments. And this is probably the last thing that I'll say about AI for tonight, but the thing that is always my worry is that it will just flood everything. Right? It has a potential to make stuff so quote unquote easy to do that it just floods everything. Mr. Slow was saying, is it bad to undersell yourself, like not adding all job experience and not listing other skills, but they found out during? Yeah, you should never be underselling yourself. Like even if in the beginning when you have no professional like games industry experience, you want to still show that you have done other jobs so that they can know that you are like ready to work, right? Because even if you've done like multiple jobs at McDonald's and like, I don't know, Wendy's or whatever you wanna talk about, right? That still shows you that you can hold a job and you're like ready to get after it if you have a consistent track record of always getting a job, right? So that can be a sign of a worthy employee by itself, right? So don't underestimate that. But yeah, it is still nice to like have a very curated kind of CV and portfolio and all that kind of stuff, right? But even in the beginning, if you don't have that, yeah, don't undersell yourself. And you're gonna... Because here's the thing, right? Like in today's competitive market, right? Like I think what I would do if I would be looking for a job as a junior, I would definitely experiment with going more personal rather than keeping everything clean. You know, because what is happening to everyone is that there's so much push towards, hey, your CV, it can't use any colors, anything like that, because then it doesn't get recognized by like an ATS system. again, like I don't think it's that big of a thing in Europe. Maybe in the US it is, but I would honestly go the opposite route and try to make my CV more personal so that I stand out from the crowd, and that hopefully adds to my chances to get a job, right? I'm willing to take that risk. All right, last question about AI here. I found out some job requirements, no AI stuff. Should we learn to use AI 3D? No, I mean, so you shouldn't learn, but you should experiment with it, you know? And I think you're gonna be, but at least I was surprised by like how much stuff it can't do yet. Even though everyone is making it like, oh my god, the next coming of Christ, right? It is really not. It is really not. Umbrella is saying, I'm looking for internships, but don't have a reference in my CV. Do you think it's a big issue or red flag for recruiter/HR? Normally, you have to provide your references for certain companies, and you do that on the spot. Yeah, MH. I mean, it is progressing fast, but that's also what they said like 5 years ago, and the progression that I'm seeing when using the tools. It's honestly not that good for production environments though. Because here's the thing, I am super hesitant with like all the argumentation of like that is trying to drive you towards a mentality of like, oh shit, I'm gonna be missing out. Like I need to get on this right now, you know? Like all the fear and the fear of missing out and all that kind of stuff is something that I genuinely don't believe in. Because what it is doing to a vast amount of people, even the people that I'm seeing in our community over time, is it creates this like fear, and it's almost like, oh my god, I need to do this because otherwise, like, what the hell? I'm gonna be left behind. And that is a part of the strategy to have more people adopt AI. Right? That is a marketing strategy, like an intentional marketing strategy. And I just don't agree with it. Because there's also signs of the opposite that we've hit like a wall as well. Well, here's the thing, MH. Like I'm not against it, but I'm just like whenever there's a side that is either like pro or against and they're 100%, they're not trustworthy. Like just 100%, like I don't listen to them because their opinion is so tainted by just being super positive or super negative that it just doesn't make sense, right? And there's not many people that are trying to, especially in 3D. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that are like really trying to toe the line and like experimenting with it, and it's like, yeah, maybe this works, but then that doesn't work. And then usually when I try to be somewhat in the gray area myself, for me it's always the same thing. It's like, okay, licensing, IP ownership, this is huge in games, and that is not solved, you know? Like the companies that are getting closer are developing their own things, right? Like I mentioned before, Ubisoft for sure. They're doing some stuff, but even them are not doing like 3D creation, I think. Not to the latest updates. They're doing just like basic material generation. Because yeah, I try to be like in the center of that too, and I try to experiment with these things occasionally. And honestly, whenever I try it, I'm like so disappointed by what they can offer that I'm always like, what are people talking about? You know? Yeah, ads are by far the most annoying. I automatically dislike them straight away. Yeah, I wonder what the general public thinks about those. I genuinely wonder. Because there are some like AI ads that are just like horrendous here in Belgium. Oh my god. Horrendous. But then I also like to, on the opposite side, there's so many people that get caught out by like AI Jesus on Facebook or like that stuff is going on at the same time too. So I'm like, oh my god, there must be something that's working, unfortunately. 3D Ben is saying, does it count as industry experience if you work within a small team to develop a fan project that becomes relatively big, even if it doesn't make any money? I mean, it counts very specific to the wording, right? It doesn't count as industry experience necessarily. Well, does it? I mean, that's kind of a gray area, right? Oh, sorry, Marmoset. I did have a look at your question. We're gonna get to that in just a second. But yeah, I'm not sure. I guess you could use it as professional experience, right? And then you know what's gonna happen? The person that's gonna be looking at your portfolio is gonna determine whether it's relevant to their project or not. So it is better to have it, regardless of what I think industry experience means, right? So keep it on there, and then just let the industry decide. Because some companies might be like, but they did it with friends, blah blah blah, this, that, and this, and then other companies might be like, hey, that's cool, you published something yourself, so you went through all the stages yourself. That is awesome. We want someone with that skill set, So Mama said, talking about our course that we're making. Is this a course that teaches you everything you need to know to become an environment artist? Yes. So my current idea is that, well, the current thing that we already have is we have core skills, which is a track that takes you from like sort of not all the way to the beginning. I don't want to overhype it, but it takes you from in the beginning of modeling to making your first assets, and then we're already building the next track, which would then be more focused on environment art, right? So like trim sheets and all that kind of stuff that comes on top of it. So yeah, the goal is definitely to become an environment artist, though. I can't really say too much about it yet. I do have some ideas, and I'll be making some announcements in the future for it. But that would be the plan for me from next month. That I'll be leading the course, and then I'll be teaching people personally, right? So I'm gonna keep it pretty vague because the actual way that we're gonna do it is still like up in the air a little bit. But yeah. Is it like a roadmap? Yes. So that's the way that we're currently structuring it, is that it is modular and that you can follow whatever thing that you want to learn, right? So the roadmap that I just mentioned is the core skills, right? And that takes you from beginning to model to like baking, texturing, and presenting in Unreal, right? For the single asset. That would be the core skills track. And then we would have like another track where it is one track that we already have is like terrain creation in Unreal, for example, or visual storytelling, and we're building all those things. I see the same ad for like 5 times in the span of a few minutes, and I found that it is even more frustrating. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Good afternoon, Metal Gear. Hope you're doing well. And hello, Sheila. Good to see you too. But yeah, so the hope is, and this would be like a full course to take you from beginning to end if you're like a self-taught person. And then also we wanna tie that into helping other industry professionals also take their skills to the next level as well. So we do want to go. We do want to go like really in depth with this stuff. Like even some of the lessons that we have are like super in depth, because what we don't want to do is we don't just want to show you like all the stuff you need to do and then you just follow along and you need to grab us by the hand and get dragged along, right? That's not the idea. We want to tell you why we're doing these things. And for example, we have like a full course already on foliage creation, right? The first lesson is just gonna be like an introduction to foliage. And that is just like, okay, what are biomes? What are different leaf types? What are different things? Like, it just goes on and on and on into all the details. That's what we really want to do. We really want to make it like an in-depth course. It's not just going to be like your beginner environment art course. We really want to go into in deep with everything. Devil is saying, looking forward to the course. Who knows? Might involve. Yee! May I ask what you use in Unreal, since you said that you don't use Lumen? Well, no, I use Lumen in Unreal, but I, as a professional myself, I don't work in Unreal. I've only worked with like proprietary engines. So I've never used Unreal on a professional project. I've only worked in, in I think 5 or 6. No wait. Like 6 or 7 engines up until this point. None of them were Unreal. So they all had like their own different lighting solutions. They're all different ways of working on that kind of stuff. Let's see. Well, let's see. There were a couple of things that got missed. Last of Us 2 type environment can use Blender. Why people use Maya, I never understand. Well, that is because their engine is built into Maya. Right? So they have built a suite of tools that is like super integrated with Maya. So that's just the way that they work, right? You gotta think that like a game company is not, especially the older game companies, they're not only making the game, they're also making the technology behind it at the same time, right? Which is why a lot of companies are actually switching to Unreal, because they've had to make their own proprietary engines for the longest time, spend millions and millions and millions on doing that, but because there was no other option, you know? So that's why you see a lot of the older engines, they're actually just older deals with, let's say, CryEngine. They then take their instance of CryEngine, slap on top of that what they want, what they need for their own game, and then they keep developing on that, right? A lot of Ubisoft engines, they're a branch from like CryEngine from Crytek that then got turned into like their own tech, right? And there's so many examples of this, right? Like if you go to Star Citizen, for example, I think now they use Lumberyard, which is like an engine from Amazon, which is then by itself also a branch from Crytek as well, from like CryEngine, I think, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of companies now use a Blender in their pipeline, especially for asset creation. Oh yeah, I mean, I use Blender in my professional work as well. I've been using Blender for like years now. I used it when I was working on Far Cry, and I've used it on Fable as well. Yeah. That is pretty normal. I know a decent amount of people that work with Blender. Like on Far Cry, like everyone on the team worked in Blender. Yeah, maybe not everyone, but like a large majority of people work in Blender. And this is like, God, this was when like 2.8 came out or something like that from Blender. And that is exactly why we just had to laugh every time people said like, oh, Blender's not industry standard, as I was using it in the industry. It was just, yeah, it was just so fun. I heard that many companies heavily modify Unreal Engine to make it as optimized as possible. Not only optimized, but also just have like a tool set that they have the need for their own work, right? Optimization is a part of it for sure, but it's also, let's say you have a specific game that requires specific tooling or specific asset streaming or texture streaming or all that kind of stuff. You have to build that yourself. right? Because you have to keep in mind, like, the reason why it also took like really long for companies to switch to Unreal Engine, in my opinion, was just because they had no good tools for open world games. They just had no way to do any of that, right? They didn't have like at that point they didn't have like a way to stream different chunks of a level. They didn't have a way to like instance in like certain things. Like all that stuff was just non-existent because it was more focused on more linear stuff, right? Also quite amazing that Blender was at version 4.1 and now 5.1. It's so fast. Yeah, I still think that I'm on 4.0. I'm not keeping up with it at all. But yeah, like actually changing the engine is really common, right? That's why I'm saying game companies are like almost half and half, like engine, like tech companies for like the game engine side, and then also doing a game on top of that, right? To my point that I was going back earlier, like that's why you see a lot of companies switching, right? So 343 Studios, who are now Halo Studios, making the new Halo, they also switched to Unreal because in one of the in one of their announcements, they just said like, hey, we've always been a tech and game company at the same time, but now we don't have to do that anymore, right? Because we have like very minimal people exposed on like the engine side with like Unreal Engine, and then they can just focus on the game. Especially in a time where there is a lot of crunch on the finances, right? Gotta keep that in mind too. I'm proud to say that I have worked on a game on a primitive in-house engine. Oh yeah, I've worked with some like weird primitive tools before. Oh yeah. There were games where I worked on that didn't even have like a way to import an asset into the game. You had to type it in to a notepad file. You had to manually type in like a bunch of strings that were like related to your assets, and that's the way that you got stuff into the game. That little notepad file was shared by the whole company that was like working on that project. So yeah, we had some fun with that. And it also had to be in chronological order. So if, let's say, I created like 10 assets here and I added 11, like an 11th asset, I couldn't like make a new line and put it in because it was like read sensitive, but like per line. But yeah, I mean, there's some crazy stuff, yeah. I still think Unreal Engine is one of the most complex softwares to master. There just seems to be so much in it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because the sort of issue or the complexity with Unreal comes from because it has to cater to such a wide audience of clients, right? So you have people that are doing like very linear games, and then you also have like companies that are doing like massive open world games, right? With like CD Projekt Red, for example. But they're still using the same tool set. In other companies, what happens is, for example, with Ubisoft, they have like a couple of engines, and then they branch off an engine, and they say like, okay, this is I don't know, the next Assassin's Creed branch, right? So we're building like a bunch of tools for that. Once that game is done, then they look at what they can reuse and then merge it with like the main branch again, right? And then they use that going forward. But yeah, with Unreal, it was completely different, right? But yeah, working in games is fun. It's chaotic. Really chaotic, creative, freaking chaotic energy, you know? Showing like twice the chaos. I think we're at the age in gaming world where people want to do everything, yet forget as humans that can do anything, but not everything. No, I think honestly that's why I love games, because they're pretty self-selective, right? If you make a game where you want to do everything, it's not gonna sell. because that's not what people are looking for, right? Which is super interesting. So even if you could do everything, that's not what people want. Because people come to a game and they expect a certain experience, and then they're going to go to the next game because the novelty is going to wear off at a certain time, right? But yeah, it is interesting. And that's why I always loved games, right? Because you just play a game, you enjoy it, and then you just go to the next thing. What do you think about the game mixtape? I have no clue. I've only seen like half a trailer, and that's it. I've honestly not even looked at like any game related stuff in like a while now. So I'm pretty much out of the loop. I know that it's the only thing that I know is that it's the highest scoring reviewing game or something like that from like a couple of thumbnails that I've seen. But that's it. I have no clue. I don't really make that much time to play games, and like when I do, I'm still playing like Pokemon Pokopia. I just grab like half an hour on my Switch before I go to sleep, and that's it. And then by that time, my brain is dead, so I can't really consume anything that needs any brain power. Cool. Talking about using brain power, let's switch it over to some feedback, shall we? Dale is saying it's a great game. Yeah, it's a decent game. Like it doesn't really grip me as I would expect it. It is nice. But I think I've gotten to the point where I'm just doing things because the game is telling me to, right? And I don't even necessarily mind, honestly. That's why I play some games, you know? But yeah, I think I've gotten to that point where it's just like, okay, like I'll just do some stuff and then I'm just gonna go to sleep, you know? Right, for people that want to go first, feel free to raise your hands and then we can go through the list. Nice bakery cafe scene. Yes, yes. Owen is saying me. Okay, let's start with Owen first. Oh, it is you, Owen. Didn't even realize. Cool, yeah, let's start with you, Owen, and then we can hop on to other people in the chat too. So if you want to raise your hand, if you want to go first, feel free to do so. But Owen, let's go. So I think you didn't have any specific questions, right? Yeah, so any sort of feedback is welcome. Cool. I had one thing that I wanted to focus on this week is the scene feels nice, right? Like you have a lot of stuff going on and it looks like visually like really interesting. There's a lot of nice density already, right? Which is really, really cool. It just feels stale. You know, it just feels like this is like I walked into IKEA and this is what I'm seeing, right? I literally noted it down as like, where's the love? You know? That's what I want to see. Like, I want to see like all the intricate bits of just like, there's a little menu here. There's like little cards like hinting at like, hey, this is this flavor. This is that flavor. It's Christmas. So there must be some presents here, you know? String lights in the windows, like all that kind of stuff. Or even in the kitchen, you know? Have a little shelf with some random junk on it. Have like a plug that's connected to this machine. Have a couple of post-it notes for like things that like Sophie from the bakery section forgets every time, right? So she needs to remember that she had to add like 2 cups of water instead of 1. There's like a menu for like the most commonly made bread. And there's also like an award for winning best bakery 2 years in a row or something like that, right? It's that kind of stuff that I want to see. It's like, sure, it can still be sort of like this like very clean looking thing from the outside, but if you're doing any sort of like close-ups of like these areas, make them feel personal, right? Like add personal touches into the mix. I think that could be like really, really cool. And same thing here, like even with this, if you have a bunch of stuff that feels like very similar, try to break it up as much as you can, right? So a stack of these guys, have the stack slightly lean over, have the top cup like slightly at an angle. Do all that stuff, have it like slightly misaligned, because this stuff really feels like too clean. You know, feels too clean. It doesn't feel like it's human. And then what you can do is, again, just like throw in a little bit of like the Christmas thematic, right? Have a couple of string lights, and then maybe also have indications of what kind of bread that I'm buying, right? Have like a couple of name tags with like the price next to it. All that stuff is relatively cheap to make in terms of like man hours, right? But it adds so much flavor to the whole thing, you know? Adds so much flavor. And then here in the corner, like, I don't know, fill it up with like some mugs that are like stashed in the corner. Maybe like a napkin dispenser, a couple of rags, like anything to just fill in like the scene a little bit more. Can be worth doing. Or just like have like, oh, someone spilled some coffee, haven't cleaned it up yet. That kind of stuff, you know? Try to add more love and more storytelling into the scene. And when doing this, try to make it as simple as possible for yourself, as in reuse what's already there, right? Because you might be surprised that you can actually just like make new stuff using existing stuff already. For example, these guys, right? Like you have these like cup holders, have like a stash of them like separately, you know? And then maybe have them wrapped in something. But that is something that you already have that you could just like make something new out of, right? You have like beans, like a bean texture. So what if we then take like this little like cardboard kind of texture and we make like a bag for like coffee beans, right? Is that something we can do? Depending on the texture, maybe we can, right? And then you have literally like a bunch of bags like filled with coffee beans, right? Cool. So focus on that. Like focus on really the amount of reuse that you can get from the scene, you know? Yeah, really play around with like decals and all that kind of stuff too. That's gonna really elevate it to like the next level. Need a coffee now? I just had one. Go grab one, Ben. Probably not a great idea. 9 in the evening? But hey, here we go. All right, Owen, thank you so much for showcasing your work. It's looking great. Yeah, just really focus on, you have all the elements there, right? Now it's time to add that like layer of personalization on top of everything to make it really feel like someone has been here, right? Make it look cool. Cool. Thank you, Owen. Wow, no hands this time. Wow, okay. I guess we're just going through the motions then. So next one up is Jack of Diamonds. Wanted to get your opinion on adding 2 characters walking towards the crypts. On one hand, it'll help introduce more narrative elements to the scene, but on the other hand, they might pull too much attention away from the environment itself. No, honestly, I think the characters are great. Like, keep them. 100%. Like, it's awesome. The only thing, I know that you just tried this out, right? Like, frame them a little bit better so that they become like a little bit more visible. Probably the easiest thing to do is to just give the torch like a little bit more light so that we can kind of see like a little bit more light coming from that torch. Or put them closer to the entrance, you know, so that they, grab my pen, so that they, I don't know, become like a little bit more like shadowed in. Maybe they're already inside or something like that. Or you could also just play around with like some brighter clothes, you know, maybe just increasing, or maybe making like the cape red or something like that. Just a little bit. It can be very subtle, but yeah, I think that would be good. But honestly, no, I think keeping the characters is good. The reason why I don't recommend this more often to add characters is that usually the characters that you can find online are pretty limited and they don't really fit into the scene as much, right? And plus, as an environment artist, it's honestly not even supposed to be within your wheelhouse to make a full character, right? Because then we're not only talking about spending like a couple of months on an environment, we're also spending like additional couple of months working on like a full character, right? We don't want to be doing that. But no, they're a great addition. Keep it. The next thing that I wanted to say here, just really quickly, was I still want to see more texture breakup on like these guys, especially because they feel like super samey. And the same can probably be said about the gravestones and some of the other stuff too, right? Because especially where things are closer to the ground, you have some like roots and vines and all that kind of stuff hugging towards them. You're gonna see a lot of blending with like dirt and moss and all that kind of stuff happening, right? So that's why I added like a little bit of a reference here. Look at how much differentiation in the colors there is. And like the moss and all that kind of stuff. This is really interesting to look at, right? From like a textural perspective. So I don't want you to get like all the stuff that you see in here, but I try to get some variation incorporated. I think that could be like a good addition to the scene. I spent 2 days on the guy on the left. Yeah, I mean, it is worth it though. I think you've done a good job of like making them fit in as well. So I honestly don't think 2 days is too bad. So that's good stuff, man. I think that's honestly time well spent. To add like characters to an environment, it's pretty good. Right. Those are like my 2 things that I wanted to say. But yeah, great additions. I think cool stuff, man. Vietnamese coffee? What is different about Vietnamese coffee? What am I doing wrong? Let me know, Metal Gear. Or if you could send me a name. I'm curious with experimenting with coffee. Ever since I played one of my favorite games, Coffee Talk. Thank you. No worries. No worries. Happy to help. Next up, we have Sadie. And this is an interesting question. So Sadie is more talking about she's trying to make the jump from AA to AAA by making personal projects that I can prove that I can hit a quality bar. It's still a work in progress, but which parts would you want to see more changes in? So, okay, this is a good question, right? So, what makes something AAA? Right? And I try to really quickly distill this is if you want to get a job in AAA, you want to be using the right workflows. You want to be working smart because you always have to think about scale, right? And reusability as much as you can. And that kind of leads into optimization as well, right? But also, we kind of want to see like an attention to detail, right? So, for example, with something like this, if you want to turn that into something that is more AAA worthy, then I want to, first of all, I want to see you use the materials in a better way. So this is PBR materials. We probably are going to turn this into stylized PBR, right? So that we get some like nice like roughness variation here and there, make all that stuff look really nice. And then also, we honestly just cannot get away with using simple boxes on, for example, these cranes, or for example, the stuff that we see up front here, you know? We need to think about how we get detail while not sacrificing the stylization that you have going on, right? And then we have to make that consistent throughout the whole scene. So that means that, for example, using trim sheets, using modular kits, using baked information, using tileable information, using all that stuff together in the right combination is the way that you want to be doing this, right? I don't know what kind of workflows you use now, but it feels very simplistic, where a lot of it feels like it's just, it reads like it is honestly just a base color or just like a very simple tileable, for example, on like the floor up front here. It's really questioning like, okay, how can we take that to the next level, right? And that's where like something like Valorant came in, right? It is stylized, it reads well, but it still has like a nice kind of stylization going on. Keep in mind that with something like Valorant, they are heavily distilling the environment to make it super readable because it's a competitive game, and art takes a back seat when it comes to competitive games because the readability of the environment comes first, right? Gameplay comes first there. But yeah, that is just a showcase. You can pick whatever game like more aligns with your style, right? But you can already see there is still like small details happening, right? Like little bits of texture blending here, and it all looks quite nice. And then you can kind of see like a little bit of foliage coming up here, and like the way that the brick wall is kind of broken up is kind of neat as well. So yeah, thinking about those elements, right? So yeah, think about like how would you do, like, let's say a crane like this. How would you make that with a AAA appropriate workflow, right? Again, think trim sheets, tileables. Probably what I would do is, let me think, like a bunch of I-beams. I would probably try to do as much as I can with trim sheets and then pick a couple of areas where I can add unique detail, right? So for example, these areas, and I don't know what this is, but maybe that as well. Don't know what this is. And then this undercarriage as well, right? That could all, because we need a lot of detail there. That would probably be unique. Uniquely textured, and you can then pack that all into like a single atlas, right? So you have like all your little bits and bobs in here that make up all those little bits, right? And then the rest of it can be trim sheets as much as you can. As an example. But yeah, I would definitely look at AAA games, right? If that is the benchmark, how can you get closer to that? My go-to here was Valorant, but you can find like a bunch of examples that kind of lead towards your style a bit more. But yeah, think about the workflows you use. Keep reuse and optimization in mind, and have that attention to detail. You know. Cool. Hope that was helpful. And welcome to the community, the Creep Archive. Good to see you. Good to see you. Umbrella is saying next, please. Okay, we will move you up, Umbrella. Your question was in the lines of, hey, I want to make a really good portfolio piece. What do I need to do to get there, right? Because you want to plan ahead, and I'm in a scenario where experimenting a lot, and I'm trying to minimize the time it will take for this portfolio piece. So you have to think, like, experimentation is always gonna happen in any creative field, right? So for us environment artists, you have to figure out how you're gonna do stuff by experimenting and iterating on things, right? So there's always gonna be friction there to a certain degree, right? If you really wanna cut down your time, and we're gonna go back to, I think, the first conversation that we had, if you really wanna cut out on time, make it smaller. Just have this individual corner, focus on that, and that's the most effective way of cutting down on the amount of time that you'll spend on this environment. If you make this corner kick ass and you add like a lot of storytelling in it, I'm happy. And you're gonna spend like, I don't know, 20% of the time compared to the full image that we're now looking at, you know? So yeah, if you want to drastically cut out on time, make it smaller, reduce the scope, cut out stuff, you know? Like really focus on the stuff that you care about showing off. A couple of other things. again, we talked about this just now with the previous example from Sadie. But again, like if you want to have a kick-ass portfolio piece, go smaller, but higher quality. You know, more details. Focus on that stuff rather than quantity and like multiple alleyways and like multiple buildings, all that kind of stuff. Focus on what is important to the portfolio project. In this case, what I really want to see, if we're gonna do, let's say, this corner here, right? If let's say this is the corner that we're focusing on, I want to see high quality textures. I want to see good blending between the walls and the ground. That's what we actually talked about last week, right? Like, how do you break up bigger surfaces? I want to see that done effectively. And then, yeah, storytelling. Storytelling is a big one. And add into that, like, attention to detail. Attention to detail, I know it's like a vague term, but it can be used for a lot of stuff, right? For example, attention to detail also means this facade, right? We're in an alley. That is a facade that is used at the front of a building, not the back, right? So that makes no sense. And that is also like thinking about like where things are in relationship to where we are in the space, right? But it can also just be attention to detail as in, oh, there's like a fuse box here. Where does a fuse box like kind of connect to? And are those connections like semi-logical, right? So for example, I don't know, there's like a freaking light here or something, right? Okay, that goes there. How does that connect to the rest of the buildings? There's like a cable here. Maybe that goes down here. So yeah, attention to detail can be in a lot of things, right? Like that blending. And then maybe there's like, I don't know, like a garbage bag here. Maybe there's like another one. And then maybe there's some, it got eaten out by the rats. So maybe there's like some stuff spilled out here. Yeah, really think about like those tiny details, right? I think the example that we talked about with Owen today is actually a good one, where it was literally talking about, okay, how do we turn something that feels like relatively sterile at this point to something that feels like it could exist in real life, and it has like love and attention to all those things, right? That's what we want to focus on. Also, another thing, just like a side note for me, repetition and like actually repeating elements is okay, but it is boring. So what I mean by that is if you are repeating a lot of elements, we need to find a way to break that up so that it remains visually interesting, right? That can be through textures, through like slight asset changes, whatever we want to do, that is fine, right? But yeah, try to avoid repetition. So what that sometimes means is, okay, you have like two similar things here. What if we cut out like the bottom staircase, and this staircase actually has like a ladder going down, you know? Cool, that is one way of breaking something up that looks very similar, right? Same thing here, right? Like how can we break this up? Maybe this bottom balcony is actually like a bit bigger, and someone has like, I don't know, some freaking plants growing outside of it, you know? I think the overpaint from like last week, if I'm not mistaken, is also still pretty good, because you can see as I'm drawing, I'm trying to keep this in mind so that it's not just like 4 stacked balconies. It is like going out from one window, connecting in a corner, and then going up a flight of stairs, and then it's connecting with another part of the building again, right? So I'm constantly trying to think about opportunities where I can break something up that looks too similar. And that is usually the trick with modular pieces, right? Modular pieces are awesome because we get to use them a lot and they're basically free, right? However, what usually goes lost is that we use visual identity, right? So we then need to add additional layers on top of it to add a visual identity back in. Cool. Right. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, good work though. Good work. Keep it up. Think about all the things that you can do to break up what we see in the textures. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. No worries. But yeah, I think honestly the most important thing whenever you're asking the question of like, hey, I'm trying to minimize my time it will take to make this portfolio piece, one camera and go smaller. Always. Always, always, always. And I think that is actually gonna roll right into the next person we want to talk about. So Parsini Federico is doing a block out for a steampunk paradise, which is really cool, but you already know where this is gonna go, right? Smaller. I had a quick peek at your portfolio because I was really curious at what your current skill level is. Just to give me like a better sense of where you are, and if this project and the size of it will be feasible for you, right, in a decent amount of time. And honestly, I don't think we're there yet, which is fine, right? Because what I'm trying to do here in these sessions is I'm trying to teach you how to get better and more efficient with building environments, right? But also I'm trying to save you from yourself sometimes. Because I remember myself as a student, I would do this too. I would want to build worlds, right? I said this in the beginning of the stream. I want to build worlds. That's what I want to do. That meant that I have like, oh my god, I have so many abandoned projects because I was trying to do things that I was not ready for at that point. And I think if you want to get this all done, with all the textures, all the storytelling, all the quality, like all the expectations that we have with making environment art at like a high level, these 3 separate screenshots, in addition to all the learning and self-development that you're going to be doing, can easily take you, I'm trying to be very optimistic, right? Like easily take you, let's say 8 to 12 months, right? If I take into account all the learning and all the workflows and all that kind of stuff that you're going to have to do, this is going to take a lot of time. So what my thing would be is, again, we just set that with Umbrella, right? Focus on one camera. And then, for example, I don't know, pick whichever one you like the most, right? And then focus on that one. Because even in this one, I gave myself 1 year. Is it bad? Yes, and I'll explain why. It is way more efficient to do smaller projects focused on things that you don't know, so that you can do more of them. And then at the end of, let's say, 6 months or 8 months or something like that, you can then decide, hey, I'm going to take all those skills, and then I'm going to apply. Oop. I think we just had a major hiccup. I think we just had a disconnect here. Sorry about that. So yeah, what you want to do, I don't know if that was like an OBS bug or if you could still hear me, because OBS just literally told me that it was like fully disconnected. So I hope that I'm back. But what I was saying is that it is way more efficient to do smaller projects that have specific goals of you wanting to learn something, so that you can do those for like, let's say a month and a half, maybe, right? And get really good results out of them, so that you can build a portfolio that way. And then build up your skills until you can do something bigger at the end, right? Because if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I'm currently betting against you, which I don't want to do. But it's way better to just focus on like an individual piece. Let's say for example, this building by itself, right? Let's say just the building, right? To make it easier. This can already take you 4 months to make it look really, really good to the standard that the industry expects you to do, right? And again, 4 months, I'm being ambitious, right? I'm being ambitious with that timeline. Because again, a lot of learning and a lot of tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff that you have to take into account too, right? And the last thing that I'll say on that note is the industry at large doesn't care about you making big things. It just doesn't. The industry cares about you making things of high quality so that you can then go into the industry and apply that to their project, right? Because think about it this way. The environment artist team on an Assassin's Creed game is not one person, right? It's literal hundreds of people that are working on that game. Because the expectation there is not to have you do all of it. The expectation is to have you do a small part of it and do it really well. And there's a big difference in the two. So keep that in mind. Because all the stuff that I'm saying is to speed up your timeline to get into the industry by making smaller projects of higher quality way quicker. Hello, Jose. This is awesome. Hey, happy to have you here. I'm glad you're liking it. But yeah, does that make sense? Parzani, free to let me know. What are some of the other things that I wrote here? Yeah, basically the same thing, right? So focus on quality, not quantity, because quality matters to your portfolio where quantity doesn't. Like honestly, I would rather see one environment, right, that is like small, contained, and has higher quality, then, well, I guess in this case, in the same time that you could do, well, it's gonna be weird, right? So in the same time that you could do like this one big environment, you could do 5 smaller environments that are like way higher in quality, and I can guarantee that. Because here's also another trap, right? In the beginning of your artistic journey, you're learning a lot. So what is actually happening is your artistic journey is going to look something like this, right? So you are here right now at the start. What you're going to be doing is this is going to happen, right? So you're going to increase your skills over time. The issue is what you're trying to do is this is within like 1 year, right? Which means that assets and textures that you have made here are going to look bad when they're here, and they're going to look horrendous when you're over here, right? So what we try to do is we basically cut this down to a more manageable degree, right? Where let's say, oh my god, I've improved so much here, and if the project is done here, the assets that I made in the beginning are not horrible. You know, I can live with the quality of them. Because what is happening in bigger projects is that the tendency, as you're learning things, there's a tendency to then, let's say you're here, you then look back and you're like, oh my god, all the stuff that I've been doing for the past 3 months kind of sucks. What? And now you're going back over all your work because now you know a way to do it better, right? So you don't want to end up in that position, because then you're going to end up in like a vicious cycle where that happens over and over until you either drop the portfolio project. What is the other option? Or you just agree with like some of the shit that you've made before, you know? So what I would do for this, right, is focus on one camera angle and make sure that this one camera angle already contains 80% of the stuff that you're really good at, right? So what I mean by that is let's say we're doing, what would be a good example? Okay, let's say we're doing this top angle here. If you haven't done foliage before, and you haven't done modularity before, and you're not that good at texturing, but you're good at modeling, right? So let's say those 4 things, you only have 1 out of 4 that you're good at, which means that you're going to introduce like a lot of friction to the way that you're building your work, right? What you ideally want to have is, let's say, hey, I want to learn how to do foliage, but I'm already pretty good at how making like modular kits and pretty good at texturing and all that kind of stuff, right? Because we want to also set ourselves up for success so that we can finish this project. Because I can guarantee you, if you have to learn everything from scratch in this single screenshot, you're not going to finish it. It's going to be too annoying, it's going to be too frustrating, and it's going to feel like a grind. So yeah, that's why I'm saying, focus on what are you good at already, and then try to build a project around what is 1 or 2 new things that I want to learn, and build a project around that. I think that's the way that I tend to look at things. Right. Okay, Parzani. I hope that was helpful. I know it's not direct feedback or anything like that, right? It's more like a heart-to-heart talk. But yeah, I hope that this is going to be helpful. See you, MSRD. Good to see you, and thanks for sticking with us. Very helpful. Thank you so much. Yeah, no worries. And hey, I'm rooting for you, man. I really am. Because the stuff that I'm seeing here, the way that you laid everything out, and the way that if this is all modular already, it's onto a good start, dude. Just scale it down, focus on the stuff that you already know, and then, yeah, really double down on them. Trying to improve on everything, that's an issue. You can't. You shouldn't do it all at once. That's what I'm saying, right? So you should focus on the things that you're already decent at, and then just add like 1 thing on top of it, right? So for example, if you are pretty good at like making a modular kit, but you're not really good at like texturing yet, make a modular kit. So what I would do is, like, honestly, if you're pretty confident with your modular skills already, but you kind of suck at texturing, the first thing that I can think of, then just make a diorama where the only thing that you're doing is you just make like this section of a building, but you really focus on the texturing, and you make it into like a little diorama. That's it. That's all you need to do. Because that allows you to focus on the things that you're trying to learn in like a contained environment, right? So yeah, build it up that way. Cool. Thank you, Parzani. Thank you for presenting your work. Looking forward to seeing that progress. Next up is Mekvel. Talking about lighting again. Again, keep in mind, I am not a lighting artist by trade, so my lighting feedback is going to be pretty broad. I would say in general, the current contrast that we're seeing in the scene is pretty harsh, right? So let's do an exercise here. Let's turn it to black and white. And sure, there is... Let me just move it up here. So there is a good focus point here, right? So you have like a strip of light that it's kind of like taking you nicely here, which is good. I think it might just be like too contrasted by the rest. It feels almost like unnatural, right? Where like I imagine almost if you can crank up like your skylight, but like, I don't know, let's say double it or something like that, right? Crank up your skylight so that the whole scene gets a little bit more light, but that we still have this focal point kind of leading us to the little tower here. That would be good, right? But yeah, I feel like there's too much contrast in the scene at this point. Also, I was gonna ask, like, what is your main reference? And I mean, not for next time per se, but it's It's like if you have like a guiding point of like, oh, I kind of want to have this mood or I want to convey this emotion, it is easier for us to then like think backwards and be like, okay, this emotion usually correlates to this kind of colors, so that I know that I need to incorporate some of those colors into it, right? In your case, it might not be an emotion, right? It's probably going to be more about the mood of the place, but that could still be something to like latch onto. And then I just found like a quick overpaint here. A quick overpaint, like a quick image, and I just love the clear simplicity of like the color contrast, right? A lot of this is coming from like atmospheric depth, but you have like this very clear like warm versus cold kind of coloring going on, right? Where in your case, apart from the redness of the environment itself, which might actually be like too saturated, depending on what you want to do with that. But it kind of just feels that the lighting is just too neutral at the moment. Which could be a choice, but yeah. So I'm just throwing some random stuff at you. Something to think about, something to play around with. But yeah, introduce a bit more light, maybe opening up like the front so that you kind of have like these little patches, you know, with shadow, but maybe they start here instead so that we have like a little bit more of a clear light going all over the place. So yeah, think about your colors, think about the color contrast that you're using, a little bit of atmospheric depth, increasing the skylight a little bit more so that we get like a bit more overall light, and then introducing these little extra patches with some additional lights. So yeah, quick one, McFal. I hope that was helpful. We do also have 2 workshops on the lighting topic, right? So one from Salvador Sanchez, which is talking about like exterior lighting, right? So like environment lighting, which is pretty good, pretty relevant for this if you've not seen it. Cool. But thank you, McFal. That's all I had to add. So I had to say, sadly, I don't have progress for Whoop Wednesday because I'm publishing my project. Let's go. Push the button. Yeah, best of luck with that, man. Best of luck. Looking forward to seeing it on finished project as well. Awesome. Next up, going in sequence, Hjalmar. Worked on updating the wooden textures, trying to create a kind of wet/worn feeling. Does it sell as that, or what tweaks will be made to push the textures further? Nice. Okay, talking about that. Well, first of all, I love the moss that you're starting to add. You already know that you need to blend them a little bit further with decals, but I like what's happening here. I think that could actually be a good case and ignore the clearly AI generated image here, but adding like a little bit more saturation into the colors could be pretty good. And also, I just love this image in terms of like how you can create like a mood with like placing foliage and moss and all that kind of stuff. I think some of this set dressing in this image is like particularly like interesting and just cool color wise, you know, like the green kind of swampy kind of vibes that we're getting. Pretty interesting stuff here. But yeah, the moss can definitely be used more. You can definitely use that more into like sections running up here, almost like the stuff that's happening here, right? Like use the moss in the way that they use the foliage on the planks. It could be cool. But the other thing, to make things feel worn, I think you've done a good job, right? Because we have a lot of broken up, like contrasted textures on the wooden planks. The only thing that I'm not feeling is wet though. Like, I'm not really feeling any contrast in the roughness at this point. So I would pick a spot, especially close to the camera, where you can almost imagine like people coming out of the water. And then, yeah, making the top of the planks wet, right? So that's where I would use more roughness. to kind of create that variation. And then what you can do potentially with like a very soft light, you can then start highlighting some of those areas. And this is actually a good tip for everyone who's listening here. Whenever you're trying to add depth to your texturing, it's always a roughness map that you want to go for, right? Where you have, usually what we do is we exaggerate the contrast between something that feels dull and feels wet, right? Because that just looks like really, really nice. I have a screenshot actually from Assassin's Creed. So let me see if I can find it. Let me actually see. So Assassin's Creed Shadows. There were like a couple of screenshots that were just like looking really, really nice. Right. This is what I was talking about, right? You can kind of see it here. It's raining outside and I can see like a clear differentiation between like what is wet and what is like not wet, right? That stuff is gold, you know? Like that is always going to look good in whatever you're doing. Like that contrast between the two things. Oh, it's good. So yeah, roughness variation, that's where it's at. I also added an image here with a couple of interesting things for you to look at. So you can kind of see some foliage growing here. There's also a water line as well. So you can kind of see like a water line that is just like across like all the pillars, which could be really cool for you to incorporate too. And then also just like this like mossy overgrowth that is kind of just like coming in as like a gradient, you know, from the bottom to the top. It could be really interesting for you to incorporate as well. Yeah, some stuff to think about. Yeah, but overall, really good progress. I like what I'm seeing. Yeah, keep pushing like all the individual elements. Use the moss more. Really work on the textures because the textures feel really flat at the moment, right? I think the worn aspect is good. We just need to make them like more contrasting to roughness. Cool. Yeah. Good job, Helmer. Keep it up, buddy. All right. Nautala is next, and I think Nautala didn't have any specific question for this week, but just was asking about like general advice. Let's see. Let me know if anything stands out or feels off in the blockouts. But not at the moment, honestly. I had a look at it before the stream, and there was nothing really that stood out like immediately. So yeah, I think you're doing a good job. What is happening here with the plinths? That's looking good too. Yeah, there's honestly nothing really that stands out to me at this moment. Apart from what is happening here. Might be a small detail, but like it feels like this plinth should actually connect to the top, right? Because usually if you look at plinths, they actually kind of curve inwards towards the top, right? So maybe that is worth looking into. The reason why that is because you want to have like a smooth transition from like the flat surface to like the rounded surface, right? Because otherwise what is going to happen, let's say, I don't know, water creeps in. Like this is basically going to act as like a large basin to capture the water. That's the only thing. Cool stuff, Nautila. Good stuff, good stuff. Keep it up. Right. let's go with stargazing next. Yeah, let's start here. Right, a little bit of a spoiler here, because I had a bunch of my stuff still active. I think you're doing an amazing job on this environment. It's not an easy environment to do, honestly. But you're saying, I still have the same question I wanted to ask again. I'm thinking about wrapping up my project, but I'm worried I might be still missing some obvious issue. It could be hurting the overall quality. Really appreciate your feedback. I'm also experimenting a little bit more with the lighting in the scene, and I'm hoping it looks better now. Yeah, so on the lighting, I think in terms of contrast and values, it looks better. The thing that I feel like it's kind of missing now is just it doesn't have that oomph anymore, right? If you look at the if we grab the concept really quick, the concept has just like this kind of vibrancy going on, right? And I know we've already spoken about this. It feels a little bit much, but there's almost sections where it doesn't really feel like your environment is even lit up. You know, if that makes sense. So what I try to do is I try to increase some of it, because we want to get this sense that this is like a very vibrant kind of place, right? Like it's very, very intense while still like retaining some of the layering that you've done, right? So what I've just done is I increased like the brightness and like reduced the contrast just a little bit, but I want to make it pop out of the screen more, right? What I would also suggest you to do is potentially with very specific cases, have a couple of like spotlights that like light up a certain area with like an orange glow, but they have to be very subtle, you know? And you're almost going to use this as like general fill lights in certain areas. But yeah, let's actually see what else we can do. Because again, it's not an easy environment to work on because there's so much like asking for your attention, right? Let me actually see. Because it's with lighting, it comes down to like being very specific with how you balance things, right? And again, like for this case, for this one in specific, it's always gonna help to just do like a little bit of a black and white check, right? So that we can kind of see what is standing out and what is not. Oh, actually, let's do this. All right, like there are certain things where I'm like, ooh, I want this to stand out more. And this could also be a case where I would potentially give this a try to give like this area like a soft fill light. So to like enhance the glow of this area a little bit, right? So that we get like a bit more of a light spread. And what we can then do is if we're raising these areas up a little bit, then we can do the same thing with some of these side areas too, but less than the main area, right? I hope that makes sense. Because I'm still thinking about like a hierarchy. So like the center of the image is going to be where you want all the attention to go, and then you have certain areas where you have people going next, right? But we need to keep the vibrancy intact while doing that. And I know it kind of feels like we went back and forth a little bit between this session and like previous session, but that's sometimes what we have to do, right? Like sometimes you have to do a little bit of back and forth to just see how we can make things stand out a bit more, right? And then can we actually potentially, I think we can increase like some of these guys. They're not too distracting, honestly. I'm curious. Yeah, again, not an easy environment to do this color balancing for. Because what did we have before, right? Right, okay, so this is from like 2 weeks ago, right? Just as like a quick way to compare things here. Maybe, This is, by the way, also a good trick, right? Like if you, I do this a lot with my environments as well, where I will take screenshots, same camera angle, then I'll just overlay them in Photoshop and see if there's something that I think is missing from this time, right? Because I think maybe the brightness and the contrast is like a bit too much now. So we dial that back a little bit. Oh, of course it's doing this too. So right, this was the way that it was before, right? And this is what we have in the latest edition. And you can kind of see it's more focused on the center. Some areas like these lights are a bit blown out, so be careful for that stuff. But you can tell that the image is like more focused, right? Which is good. So we're getting there. We are getting there. So yeah, just really pushing the vibrancy of the scene, picking a couple of areas where you just like slightly increase the intensity of the lights, and then see if you can work with like some fill lights that kind of can give you like a little bit more glow in certain areas, but just very subtle stuff, right? Very subtle tweaks that we're doing at this point. And then you can do the same thing for some smaller side areas, right? Like again, before and after, where we're just elevating some areas, right? To make them shine a little bit more. Always helpful. Right. Cool. Let's see. Not that group. Yeah. Okay. I hope that was helpful, Stargazing. Good stuff, though. This stuff is like it's time consuming, but it is worth it, right? So final tweaks before publishing it, I think are going to be really good. Yeah, great stuff. Love the environment. Very ambitious. So yeah, love to see it. Cool. And then the last one for today, Zonky Beans. Been chipping away at the scene for the last days, and I wanted to get some feedback on the block out before I started working on the wood plank kits. Let me know what you guys think about the composition and scale of things. Yeah, I had no real feedback on like the scale and the composition. I think it feels like pretty good. Yeah, pretty good stuff overall. I like what is happening. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to break things up, right? As in make things less straight. So try to incorporate that in your more detailed passes from your block out, or whenever you do like a pass on the assets, right? But the composition itself is really good. So there's like a couple of opportunities where you can maybe do something here with like this being like slightly crooked. Basically looking at this and then thinking like, okay, how can I push this further, right? Like what don't I like about it? Or can I push certain elements that are a little bit too stale. Because I can recognize this. This is also the way that I prefer to work before I was a 3D artist and I was doing like a lot of like sketching and line art and all that kind of stuff. Line art has this tendency to be very straight, right? So these beams are like super straight because it's really easy to draw them and then fill in like the details later, right? But it's up to you to make them way more interesting, right? Like how can you make these silhouettes of the building like way more interesting and intricate and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that I would say is there's like a little warning here where you have this like massive open space that has like boats and a bunch of stuff in the back. That is, I'm not concerned necessarily, but like keep in mind how much work this is gonna be, right? Because let's say you want to do the boats and like all the industrial stuff at the back. I think it looks really cool, but it is a lot of work for something that's going to be in the background, right? I mean, you could do some like smart stuff with it where you like use your wooden kit and then kind of make like silhouettes and then hide them in the fog and all that kind of stuff. There's some cool stuff that you can do with it, but yeah, keep that in mind. Yeah. Good stuff. So yeah, we talked about like making it all crooked. That's the first thing. And then, I mean, yeah, that's basically nothing is straight, right? And improving upon the concept. Cool. But honestly, other than that, I currently have nothing to mention there, Zonkabin. So, good stuff. Great start of the project. And yeah, really interesting to see where you take it. Cool. And that is it for this session. So let me switch it back. 2 hours, I do have to say, I do like the focused sessions more. It allows me time to like properly prepare and all that kind of stuff. I like it. Cool, so we'll see. Because I'm expecting this was a quiet week as well. It was, maybe it's like people are probably still trying to get everything done for the team challenges. So I'm expecting things to get busier from next week. We will see. All right, talking about getting busy, I will be posting these overpaints into your respective threads on the Discord. But I do have to go now because I do have to prepare for our art blast tomorrow. So if you see a bunch of team challenge stuff like appearing on your LinkedIn or your Twitter, wherever people are posting it, make sure to share it around from the artists. Get them all the love, get them all the rewards that they can get for their 5 weeks of hard work. But keep an eye out for that tomorrow at 8 p.m. GMT, I guess. Let me double check that. I don't even know what time zone we're in. GMT +1. Let me verify that. What time zone is it? CEST. Okay. Central European time. So tomorrow at 8 in the evening, you're going to see people posting all their work, sharing all their ArtStation links. So keep an eye out for that. Support all the hard work that was done in the past 5 weeks, because we will be doing the same as well. Okay, people, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this session. And we will see each other on Friday for portfolio reviews. So I'll see you then. Have a creative week. Bye.